So welcome everyone to the mushrooms drawing on gray toned paper. My name is Anita Thompson of Art Venture Workshops. I'm a mobile-based artist. I do teach in person as well, but I do a lot of the adult programs are on Zoom. We started that during COVID and it just kind of stuck. I think it's rather helpful, especially in the colder months. It's great because you can still draw or do art. You don't have to leave your house. Let's see. I have somebody else coming on. Um, so we're going to get started here. I'm just going to copy this. Hello. We are just getting started and we are recording. It's so great to see everyone. And also, before I start, if you like what you see and you're interested in more programs like this, I will leave my email in the chat. And if you want to be added to the newsletter, you can either email me or you can send me your email privately, and I will add you to the newsletter. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start off with a pencil first. So as always, I always mention you want to draw this light so that when we go over it afterward, it is, it's pretty erasable. It's harder to erase when you go darker. Sorry for my adjusting here. Okay. You know what? I'm going to go up just a little bit higher so that you can actually see the top of my paper here. All right, that is better. Now let me straighten out a little. Oops. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so we are going to start in the middle of our paper here. You want to make sure that you probably want to end about right here. I'm just going to make a kind of a line at the end of my paper or a few inches above so that I don't go over that. If you want, you can do the same. And then we're going to get started now. And so at the top of our paper, and I'm going to be creating this darker so that you are able to see my lines, because especially on the gray paper, it doesn't show up as well on Zoom. Okay, so we're making the top portion of our mushroom here. I've seen a lot of mushrooms lately, I think because of all the wet weather we're having. So we're kind of making like the hat. I call it the hat. I don't know if that's an official name. But we're making a general shape. And then we're going to go back and make it more detailed. So what do I mean by that? Basically, I just want to get the general shape in here. And then I go back and make more, kind of bumps, make, maybe change a little bit of, some of the details, but we're just doing an overall general shape for right now. Somebody else coming on. Welcome, Christy. We're just getting started, and I put the information in the chat for you for the supplies, but we're starting off first in pencil. And we are recording. I also forgot to mention, for those that are new, you do receive the recording later on, probably later on this week. And you can either redraw it, you can share it, whatever you want. It does go up on my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel. I'll put that in the chat as well later on. Free tutorials on there. It's the tutorials that I do for the libraries for the most part. Sometimes I add some more stuff. I'm going to be adding a few more tutorials that I don't teach in the libraries. So you can look out for those. All right, so we have our hat here, and now we're going to start to draw the long part of our mushroom. And so we start underneath the mushroom, the part that is kind of holding it up. Here again, you want to, have this be kind of light. And then you're going to make the shape, start to make the shape of, oops, I grabbed a pencil without an eraser on the bottom of it or on the top of it. And even though I use my other eraser, it's kind of nice to have one on your actual pencil. So I'm going down to the bottom of the paper, almost the bottom of the paper here. I gave myself a little bit of room to kind of end at. And then I'm going to come back here and make it three-dimensional. For this, I am kind of making it a little bit more bumpy and paying a little more attention to the shape of it. Oops. I'll let everybody get caught up. And in the meantime, I'm going to go a bit closer. Oh, we have Marcia coming on. Nice. I have a feeling we're going to have some people coming on a little bit late since the link wasn't given out. Hi, Marcia.
Buonasera, signora.
Did you finally get the link?
I just opened my emails about an hour ago and I saw it.
Okay, good. Good, good, good. I'm going to share again the information in the chat. We are starting with our pencil. And I'm just going to mute because we're recording. So good to see you. Okay. All right. So basically, we started a few inches from the top of our paper, down a few inches toward the bottom, up from the bottom. We've made our, sort of hat shape here. And now we've made the first mushroom, and now we're going to make the other one. So this one is kind of leaning a little bit. I'm very much into nature stuff right now, botanical stuff. You'll see that if take some of my classes in the summer. Lots of opportunity for botanical stuff because the summer reading program, the summer reading theme, which a lot of the libraries go by, not all of them, but some, is Unearth Your Story, which is really neat. I had shown a few of you who came on a little bit early, some of the ones that I'm working on for the adults and the kids for the summer. So this kind of looks like a lamp, right? Like the shade. Like so. And then we're going to add some things to the bottom. And please feel free to add more things to it that I don't have, like flowers if you want. I kind of did this a little bit bare bones, but, feel free to sort of, make it a little more your own if you want. So I just, with this bottom area section, when I originally created this, I kind of just did it. I didn't really draw out the bottom part. I just kind of went, free when I was copying it, or basically what I'm trying to say is like I had already drawn the rest. And then when I went to go ink it, I thought, let me add some, kind of do it a little bit free. I tend to do that sometimes. I think it's kind of fun that way. But that being said, if you want to, add some flowers or something like that, please feel free to do so. So I'm kind of just making a little bit of what I did here, kind of pre-drawing that out. You could even make a little rabbit if you want. Okay. So I'll wait for everybody to kind of catch up. And then we're just going to start adding some details. And then after that, we will actually start to ink this and add the, the light part of it using the white colored pencil. You can use charcoal for this too. Um, it would make it sort of like a softer, kind of like a softer drawing. But you could do that too if you want. So just making sure everybody is caught up here. Okay. All right, so we are going to now add some details. Let's add some details to the smaller mushroom here. And basically what we're going to be adding is the parts on top of the mushroom here. So we've got some, sort of like the circular parts, and then um, also sort of some kind of minor cuts, if you will, in the texture of the mushroom. So let's do that now. And, add some that are kind of, sticking up a bit because it is texture. I think mushrooms are so cool. As I mentioned, I've been seeing a lot kind of growing on some of the trees. I don't know all of the names of them, but I take pictures and then I kind of Google it to see what the names are. Some of them are really, I think they're really cool looking. I don't know that I would eat them, and I'm sure you probably can't eat a lot of them, but they are really neat looking. Now, I'm not going to touch sort of the, on top of the mushrooms in the sense of the texture that is going on both of these, because we are going to do that with our black pen. But I wanted us to kind of redraw out or pre-draw out the texture on this one. And we have a few sort of pieces in the air here. I just thought they would be really neat and give it a little bit of a kind of a whimsical feel. So we have some of that going on. Everybody get caught up. And then before we start to ink, this is where we're just going to fine tune our details. So what that means is, I've made this pretty round. So I want to add, maybe a little bit more of a bump up here. It's a little bit flat and then it goes up again. So I'm just kind of giving it a little different of a shape here. Same with here. I just added sort of another bump outward over here. And then we're going to go around, the hat part and make it a little more bumpy. Kind of like, very ridgy. And then go up here. And I'm going to add a little more of a curve of that part. And then I like to just kind of lighten up my lines. We'll be erasing them again before we start inking, or actually after we start inking, I should say. But we can now start to ink. So look over your drawing, see if there's anything that you want to change before we start inking. And we're going to start. So before we actually start, I just want to kind of draw your attention to, a close-up of some of the detail. And so for those of you, if you haven't used, pen before, basically in order to create shading, you would go over a spot to make it darker, and then you start to lighten up your strokes in lighter areas. So just wanted to kind of go over that, and we'll get started here. Oh yeah, non-waterproof is okay, Debbie. Absolutely. Yeah, so since we're not doing mixed media with this, I know I have ones, for instance, the one that I'm using right now is non-waterproof. I found that out the hard way when I was designing one of the workshops, and I used it first and then went to go watercolor, and it was not good. So they said it was waterproof, but it is not. So the ones that are usually waterproof, definitely the microns, and then also I found Sharpie is actually waterproof as well. They're really good, but doesn't matter. Got the Sharpie. I thought I saw the Sharpie, John Paul. Perfect. It won't smudge. As long as you are not, completely, going like this as you're drawing. I don't think it'll smudge. Mine doesn't. I don't know what brand yours is, but yeah. Okay. All right, so we're going to get started. So what we're going to do first is we're going to outline everything first. And so we're going to start up at the top here. And we're going to outline. So my pen is very thin, very ultra fine. And so basically I went back quite a few times in order to layer on the shading. If yours is a little bit thicker, you'll have less time where you have to kind of keep layering, and that's okay. And so just go very carefully. We're just kind of outlining the basic parts here. I also start to add a tiny bit of bumpiness to kind of the, I don't know if you would call this the stem. I might be running out of ink too. I may have to grab another one. We shall see. Um, we're going to go to the next mushroom here and outline. And so basically, I leave the bottom portion blank for now. We'll go back to that, but you can sort of outline kind of the areas that are next to the mushroom. And again, I will go back later and make parts of them a bit darker. Now we're just kind of drawing, kind of outlining some of the areas in. So sort of like that, a basic outline. I'm gonna let everybody catch up. I'm gonna see if I have another one of these pens next to me. This one might do.
The rest is in the uh, crack pot. I got you your stuff. I just thought it'd be more to read. Whatever. You okay? Yes.
Okay. So now we're going to start creating the darker areas and more of the detail. And we'll start first actually at the bottom. Oh, you know what I forgot? We have to do the smaller mushroom. So let's also do that right before. My pen started kind of running out, and I think I saw that, got up and started looking for another pen, not expecting that. So I got a little bit distracted. But we also want to outline the smaller mushroom here, the hat part, and make sure we start to add some of the ridges at the bottom, like so. And then what I like to do is kind of go in, and you can do it afterward if you want. I like to kind of just erase away some of the pencil marks. And now we're going to get started. So let's start at the bottom first of these, or actually, the longer areas. And so I'm going to go in really close so you can see a lot of the detail. Let's start with the small one. And so we're going to start making some of those lines like so. And then we're going to go back and make parts darker, but we're going to create some of the texture that's happening down here. So the darker areas would be on either side, and we'll go back and make those darker. But first, let's just add some texture going all the way down. And then again, coming up the other side. Like so. I'm gonna grab one more pen.
What are you watching, Rich?
Okay. All right. Now we're going to, for a second, we're actually going to fill in on either side. Very nice, John Paul. Beautiful. Oh my goodness. Love it. We're going to fill in the dark areas underneath. And so we make long strokes right next to each other. And then we're going to lighten up our strokes as we get toward the edge here. And so basically we make those strokes a little bit farther apart. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I like to sort of re-outline that area. Again, going from, dark from the inside and then getting a little bit lighter. Going toward the end. And then doubling back and making the darks even darker by kind of going there again. Or going over them again, I should say. Okay, and then we're now going to go down into the rest of it and make some of those darker, right? So I like to outline again and make it a little darker on either side. And then we're going to start to go inside and add some more darker strokes on either side of the mushroom. And then go down either side and make long strokes again to make it a little darker. So go down one side. And then go down the next side. And here you can make little parts of it, like little dark spots. Just kind of recreating some of that texture. And we'll go back later on and add the bottom part. But now we're going to go up to the top. And we're going to create sort of some shading around each of the round parts that are kind of sticking out. So I'm going to kind of re-outline those to make them darker. Like so. And then I like to re-outline, the hat part. And then we're going to start adding a little more closer strokes here at the bottom. And what we want to do is, some parts of the mushroom are kind of like breaking. And so you can go back, and where my finger is pointing, I'm kind of like doubling up on the shading or the strokes, and then it makes it look like it's kind of breaking, like so. And then you can go inside and very lightly add some fine lines. And then to the circular areas, they are raised a bit. I don't know what those things are called, but they're raised a little bit. And so at the bottom portion of each one, you can add a little bit more of a dark stroke to make it look like it's kind of popping off of, popping above the texture. Oh, nice, John Paul. Beautiful. I love it. Okay, so we're going to go to the next one. And this one we're actually going to start at the top. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start off and we're going to basically make lines, strokes. But with this, we want to give the impression that it has volume and that it's curved. And so our strokes are going to curve. So basically, right here, we're not going to make strokes like this, right? They're going to be more like this, right? And then the other side, like that. Okay. So starting at the top, so we're going to go kind of light. And what we want to do is we want to go in at the top and then also the bottom. And I know it's very much colored in at the bottom, but we'll go back and do that. But right now we just want to get basically the strokes down. So here I am making kind of curves, right? And as it starts to go to the other side, to the right, my curves also switch. And then I go back up from the bottom. We'll hit the middle too, but for right now, we're going to add in the top and the bottom. You can go a little bit straight with your lines, kind of here in the middle, and then kind of wavy again. And then we're going to very lightly go in the middle and do a few, kind of filling it in. but very kind of scarce because that is the lighter area. And when you're done that, you can kind of outline the outside again. And then we're going to start darkening it up. Basically along the top, around the sides, and at the bottom. So it's a little time consuming because you're doing, you know, strokes right next to each other. But it comes out, I think, nicer when you take your time. It's kind of relaxing too, hopefully. Definitely makes you slow down. And you can work on it however you like. So if you want to do the top first and then the bottom, but I tend to work from top to middle to bottom on each section as I'm going so that I can see how dark it's getting. You know, and you can, you know, shade in the darkest areas right along the edge, especially at the bottom here. But just take your time. This part takes the longest. It's because we have such a varying, sort of a varying, you know, shaded areas, dark, medium, light. Whereas the other ones, you do have a little bit of dark, but not as much variation as the top part. And so once I have it sort of kind of filled in for the most part, I then go back to the darker areas to make them really dark. Now, in order to make some of the areas, you know, even lighter, you want to have a really light hand when you're kind of like lifting up the pen when you're doing the lighter areas, almost like just kind of skimming the surface of the paper. It's very relaxing. Now I'm going in at the top and just making it really dark right at the top of the kind of the hat area. And this is where, you know, you want to try and even it all out in the sense of having it go from dark to medium to really light. You know, and you can go, you know, the opposite way with the dark area. Like you can see now I'm going kind of horizontal and filling in some of the darkest area of the top part. You know, and when you're ready, you can kind of re-outline the bottom portion of the hat area. And also the outside. And we're going to do the same thing. Hello. We are recording, so you'll receive the recording at some point. Glad you were able to join us. We are in the section now where we are adding the black in. Oh wow, John Paul, that looks awesome. Very nice. Okay, so we're going to start now in the center part. You haven't outlined it again to make it a little darker, please do that now. And then we're going to start here in the middle. And basically, we're going to be making our lines a little bit curvy, coming upward from this section. Kind of like a tree almost.
The title 1600. The title is why in a whole Stephen Shabbat be the links to be incorrect.
So like that so far. And then we're going to start going down into the rest of it, going on either side, making it a little bit dark, going down the left side. We'll do the same on the right side. Hi, Amy. We are on the section of the drawing where we're inking, but this is being recorded. So if you want to hang out and if you can catch up, but if not, this will be sent to you later on this week. But so happy you joined. So we're going to go on either side, and make it darker. Oh, thanks, Amy. Happy Monday to you. Okay, so it's kind of dark on either side, and then we start to lighten up in the middle here with our strokes. Right, and we're going to start to add some texture in, meaning kind of like these little shapes. Right, if you've ever looked at the mushrooms, especially on this area, it's like there's little layers that are kind of coming up. And so kind of tried to address that. Mhm. And then we're going to start getting a lot darker now in the middle here, up at the top. And so we start off at the part where it's just starting to kind of go underneath the mushroom. And we start to add more strokes to kind of fill in that it's a little darker under there. And then it gets really dark, kind of right where it starts to bend. Right, so I'm kind of pointing my finger there. Right, it's going to get really dark right here. Again, this takes a little bit of time, but it's relaxing, I hope. And I like to leave a little sliver of kind of light. So basically you can see that my curves and my strokes kind of go up, but I leave a little sliver right above to make it look like there's light there. And then I'm going to go back in and fill in some of the areas that I want it to be a little darker. If you go dark all at once, I feel like, at least for me, it's a little bit harder to then kind of match that dark with some medium and light strokes. I tend to get really dark, so I kind of do it this way. If you find a better way for you, please, please do that. And then we're going to now start to expand those strokes and sort of break them up. So we're going to go light. And so here is where you sort of want to use your pen, but you're going to go really light. again, as if you're kind of skimming the surface, right? So you're barely touching the surface. So I'm going to start off here and I'm going to make some curves to about right there. So a curve there. And I'm going to do another one over here. And again, you can see my line, I'm kind of skipping it. So like that, this one and this one. And that's going to kind of separate sort of the top section and the bottom section. And then from here, we're going to make light strokes, almost like wavy. And then when we get to the corner here, we're going to get a little darker. Like so. And we're going to do this side first, the right side. And so now we kind of come underneath and we're really going to go really light and then kind of curve our lines as we get to the bottom. Kind of making, you know, some texture. And here again, you're going to kind of curve your lines going to the right, kind of flowing a little to the right. And now we're going to go to the left side. And same thing, except the opposite direction. Then we go back, make it a little darker by going over the strokes. And then we're going to start again, kind of underneath here and kind of make some jagged lines going out to the edge here. And then we start to make darker lines. Coming in from the edge. And you can see I'm kind of curving again. But from the bottom part to the top, kind of very storybook-like, I feel. And then I like to go around the outer edge again and kind of fill in a little bit spaces here to kind of make it a little bit more of an outline. So making it a little bit thicker, the outline around the edge. We're also going to take this opportunity now to very lightly kind of outline the little spots kind of in the air. And then we're going to come down and finally take care of these areas here that are more of the leaves. You know, make them a little bit thicker. You know, add a little bit more of kind of a scribbly sense. And we're finally going to come back down here and make the grasses. And so this is where you're going to kind of freehand it. All right, so we've got the ground here at the bottom. Some dark grasses in between the two mushrooms here at the bottom. We want to make it kind of look like, you know, soil a little bit, or grass over here. And make it look very, you know, loosely like grass and whatever. And now you're just going to take a look to see if there are any spots that you want to darken up before we add our last part, which is our white pencil. So I always like to kind of, again, make sure that my lines at the top are nice and crisp, you know, with where the hat is. So and a little bit that up here. You can do the same on either side of your mushrooms. And before we get started with the white, you want to erase away any pencil that you can still see. I have a few marks. Make sure that your ink is kind of dry. And then we're going to pick up our white pencil. And we're going to outline around all of our mushrooms here. And so I kind of outline and kind of color at the same time to make it a bit bright. So now it should kind of look a little bit like almost like it's glowing. So again, taking the white and outlining along the edge of the whole thing, right? So like the big mushroom, the small mushroom. Oops. I have to go get another white pencil. I'm having issues with supplies tonight. I just broke the one. But keep going and outline. Again, outlining on either side. And then we're going to start to add the white also along the outlines of the leaves at the bottom here and all the kind of shrubs. And then even at the bottom here in the grass. And adding the white in the lighter parts of the mushroom, and underneath. Basically, the white is sort of the lighter parts. So with the mushroom, especially underneath, I tend to go in between the black lines and also, on the gray part. In the smaller mushroom on the raised areas, and then, here again on the actual mushroom. And you can tell, I'm going kind of fast with it. Kind of scribbling. It gives it a bit of a more of a looser look. And then finally you're going to take strokes and kind of on either side of your mushrooms. You're going to take strokes and you're going to add white kind of on the outside, in the, kind of area. So like, I'm going to show regional up close. So you can see, like, I'm making strokes. It's whiter on the outside of each of the mushrooms. And then, it gets, the strokes get looser and further apart when it gets kind of in the atmosphere. I like to go, I like to go a little bit darker or lighter, kind of at the edge of where the mushrooms meet together in between. So I'm kind of coloring in using my white. You can add some, grass that's kind of light. And then again, I like to go around the mushrooms one more time just because I really like that kind of glowy effect. It's like a mythical forest or something. In my head, it is. I'm so curious to see what everybody's looks like. So I'm going to move my camera a bit and then I'm going to stop the recording.